Okay, I want you to picture something. The early 1980s. In this one particular region, the market is, it's essentially closed off. It's turbulent.
Right.
Inflation
That,
is a daily problem.
that,
Supply chains are a mess. And if you wanted air conditioning in your car,
forget about it.
good luck. It wasn't standard.
Yeah.
It was basically science fiction for the average person.
And it sounds like such a minor thing today, but back then, that was a huge gap in the market, a huge opportunity.
Exactly. And the domestic manufacturers, they wouldn't touch it. The risk was just way too high, and the tech wasn't really there. And so into that vacuum, you have this small group of engineers. They don't have a giant factory, no legacy capital. They just have this, technical belief that they can build something the market says is impossible.
And fast forward.
Fast forward 40 years to 2023. That same little company is now an industrial powerhouse. But here's the twist. They aren't just making car parts anymore.
No.
They're making high-tech consumer electronics. They're running their own logistics. And this is the part, they're farming.
That's the part that always stops people. The farming.
It stops me. We are talking about a company that lists agro-industrial field right next to smartphone manufacturing. So today, we're doing a deep dive into the 2023 integrated report of the company.
Right.
And our mission really is to answer one big question. How does a legacy manufacturer survive 4 decades of just extreme volatility and come out the other side growing, soybeans and circuit boards?
It's a masterclass in adaptation. And honestly, when you read through this report, which, it covers their 40th anniversary, it doesn't read like a victory lap.
No.
It reads like a survival manual.
A survival manual? That is a pretty grim way to frame a birthday.
It might be, but I think it's accurate.
Right.
Usually when companies hit 40, they get comfortable, they get bureaucratic.
Sure.
This report is almost obsessed with this idea of crisis as origin. They seem to believe the only reason they exist is because they treat every single year like it's the early 80s all over again.
They never got comfortable.
Never.
Okay, so let's unpack that. We're looking at their 2023 integrated report. Before we get into the strategy weeds, help us visualize who this company is right now.
Okay.
If I walked into their operations today, what am I seeing?
You're looking at a completely different animal than that original workshop. First, let's just talk scale and the financial picture. We won't get into specific currency figures, but the report makes a point to say they prepare their financial statements under IFRS.
International Financial Reporting Standards.
Exactly.
Okay, wait, pause there. Why should a listener care about IFRS? Isn't that just, accounting housekeeping?
That's what a lot of people think, but it's so much more than that. It's a strategic signal.
A signal.
Think about it. When you operate in a volatile, developing market, international investors get nervous about your books. They worry about transparency. So by adopting IFRS, the company is telling the global market, look, we might be in a rough neighborhood, but our house is built to global code.
It's a trust-building exercise.
A huge one. It's how you attract serious partners.
Okay, so they're signaling global competence. And operationally,
they describe themselves using this model of value creation. And this is where it can get a little academic, but it's important. They base their business on 6 capitals.
6 capitals. I'm used to financial capital. Maybe human capital. What are the others?
So this is the whole framework of integrated reporting. They look at financial and human, yes, but they also list manufacturing capital, their factories, intellectual capital, their know-how, social capital, their reputation, and finally, natural capital, the environment they use.
It sounds a bit like, corporate bingo. We have 6 capitals.
It can sound like buzzwords, but then you see how they use it to survive.
Yeah.
The argument is that in a volatile economy, your financial capital is fragile. Inflation can wipe you out.
Right.
But if you have strong intellectual capital, like knowing how to fix a machine yourself, or strong social capital, so suppliers trust you on credit, that's what keeps you alive. Ignore one of the 6 and the whole thing falls over.
That's a great point. Resilience isn't just cash. It's the ability to keep moving when cash is tight.
Precisely.
So 2023 is the 40th anniversary. Their theme is innovation for the world. But you read the president's letter, and the mood isn't exactly a party.
No, not at all. The president's letter is fascinating. It's almost entirely focused on the macroeconomic environment. He says very clearly the company was born in a crisis and was operating in one in 2020.
It's like they wear crisis as a badge of honor.
They really do. The phrase they use is converting threats into opportunities. Now, every CEO says that.
Of course.
But this company details how. And that brings us to the first major challenge they faced: This paradox of being a startup giant.
The startup giant. That sounds like a complete oxymoron.
It is. I mean, they're 40 years old. They have heavy industrial assets, factories, machinery. That usually makes you slow, risk-averse. But they claim their advantage is a startup spirit.
Which usually just means you have beanbag chairs in the office.
Right. But in this context, it means agility. The challenge was, how do you stay agile when you have millions tied up in heavy equipment? And in 2023, with that instability, instead of cutting back, they expanded.
They leaned into it.
They leaned in hard. They talk about economic performance, that's GRI 201, and they basically used their ability to manage risk as a weapon. They said, our competitors are scared, we aren't, we know how to operate in the dark.
And that boldness, that leads right into the second challenge, which is the one I'm still trying to get my head around, diversification. It's one thing to go from cars to trucks, but from auto parts to electronics to agriculture.
It feels radical, but you have to look at it through that lens of risk management.
Now, go on.
The auto industry is cyclical. Consumer electronics also cyclical, and they depend on imported parts.
True.
Agriculture, it's a commodity. It operates on a totally different cycle. And crucially, it can generate hard currency exports, which is like gold in an economy with a weak local currency.
So it's a hedge. It's just portfolio theory 101 for an industrial company.
Yeah, exactly. But the challenge isn't just financial, it's operational. How do you take an engineer who optimizes circuit boards and have them manage a soybean harvest?
That's the real question. You spread yourself too thin, and suddenly you're mediocre at everything.
And that's the danger. So how did they solve it? They applied what they call industrial rigor to biology. The report mentions a philosophy of manufacturing quality, not just controlling it.
Manufacturing quality, not just controlling it. Break that down for us.
Well, traditional quality control is checking the product at the end of the line. Is this broken? Toss it.
Right.
Manufacturing quality means you design the process so the error can't happen in the first place. They took the standards they learned in the auto industry, things like IATF 16949, which is the gold standard for auto quality, and applied that thinking to their new businesses.
So they're basically farming with ISO standards.
Effectively, yes. They didn't just buy a farm and pray for rain, they industrialized it. A seed is treated just like a microchip, an input that needs to be optimized for maximum yield, zero defects.
That is a fascinating way to look at it. It completely de-romanticizes farming.
It turns it into an engineering problem. And that leads to the third challenge, the people. Because your workforce can get very confused very fast.
Right.
The report lists their personnel breakdown. You have factory operators, of course. But then you have 123 people in systems consulting, business consulting, and call centers.
That feels like a massive culture clash waiting to happen.
Yeah.
You've got the blue-collar factory culture and then white-collar consultants.
Exactly. And that's where their focus on human capital becomes a survival tool, not a pook. They had to create a unified culture of quality that makes sense to the person driving a tractor and the person writing code.
So 2023 was the year they really tried to solidify this new identity. Let's talk key events. The 40th anniversary is the obvious one.
It is, but look how they framed it. It wasn't a look how great we are party. It was a look how resilient we are moment. It gave them the perfect platform for that innovation for the world branding. It signals they're looking outward now, not just surviving locally.
And the second key event has to be that expansion we talked about. The report specifically lists one agro-industrial field and one logistics center.
And that logistics center is the real sleeper story here. If you're a manufacturer in a volatile country, what's your biggest headache?
Getting stuff in and getting your finished product out.
Logistics, ports, customs, trucks. By building their own logistics center, they're vertically integrating their survival. They're controlling their own destiny. If the public infrastructure gets messy, they have a hub.
It's another layer of that fortress strategy.
Yes.
Now for the third event. I know you want to talk about this one. Double materiality.
I do. I know it sounds like the most boring jargon ever, but for an analyst, this is the most exciting part of the report. In 2023, they did a double materiality analysis.
Okay, explain this to me like I'm 5. What is double materiality?
Okay, single materiality is what companies have always done. You ask, how does the world affect my money? So, if a drought happens, do I lose profit? That's financial materiality.
Right. Self-preservation. Got it.
Double materiality adds a second question. How do I affect the world? This is called impact materiality. So, does my factory's water usage affect the local community?
And why does a hard-nosed industrial company suddenly care about that? Is it just for PR?
No, and that is the absolute key. They realize that impact risk eventually becomes financial risk. If you pollute the water, the community might protest and shut you down, or the government fines you. Or, and this is crucial, your big international clients stop buying from you.
Because their investors won't allow it. It closes the loop.
It closes the loop. It turns doing good into protecting the bottom line. And this analysis is what redefined their priorities. It pushed ethics and product safety right to the top.
That's a perfect segue into the ESG section, because it sounds like it's actually baked into their strategy, not just an add-on. So let's start with governance. You called it their anchor.
It has to be. The report is very heavy on ethics and integrity. They cite GRI 205, which is the standard for anti-corruption.
Which, let's be honest, in many emerging markets, corruption is a constant risk.
It's a constant temptation. But this company uses their corporate governance structure as a shield. They're basically saying, if we cut corners on ethics, we lose our international certifications.
And if you lose those?
You lose your customers. So the Code of Ethics isn't a poster, it's a business continuity plan.
Okay, moving to social. We talked about the workforce, but there was one stat on customer safety that really jumped out.
GRI 416, the assessment of health and safety impacts of their products.
And the number they reported was?
Zero. Zero incidents of non-compliance regarding the health and safety of their products.
Zero. For a company making complex electronics, car parts that can't fail, and now handling food products.
It is incredibly hard to achieve. Think about a car's infotainment system. If that shorts out, it's a hazard. A food shipment with contaminants, a disaster. Zero non-compliance is the ultimate proof of that industrial rigor we discussed.
It's how you build trust.
It's everything. It's how a global brand like a Toyota or Samsung knows you're a safe partner.
That trust is their real currency. Okay, what about the environmental pillar? Factories, farms. Their footprint has to be pretty significant.
It is. They're operating under ISO 14001, which is the gold standard for environmental management systems. They're measuring their contribution to the UN's 2030 agenda.
So are they just measuring things, or are they actually changing things?
The report frames it as a continuous journey. They're not claiming to be carbon neutral today, but that double materiality analysis forces them to be honest about their natural capital usage. They're tracking energy, waste, water. In the agro sector, this is going to be huge.
Right.
How they manage soil health will determine if that asset appreciates or depreciates over time.
So looking at 2023, they survived, they diversified. What's the plan for the future? What are the big objectives?
I see three clear priorities. First is just deepening innovation.
Innovation for the world. That tagline again.
It has to be. If they stop innovating, they just become a low-cost commodity manufacturer. And in a high-inflation economy, you can't win by just being cheap. You have to sell value, and value comes from technology.
You have to be smarter, not just cheaper. Got it.
Second objective is what I'd call sustainable diversification. The report talks about building the future. They have to grow these new verticals, agro and logistics, without breaking that culture of quality.
Can you keep that perfect safety record when you double the size of the operation?
That is the scaling trap. Exactly. And the third priority.
Let me guess. Alliances.
Strengthening alliances. Yes, allianzas. In a world of supply chain fractures and messy geopolitics, your partners are your insurance policy. They're making it a priority to nurture those relationships.
It really does feel like they're building a fortress. But not the defensive one you hide in, more like a mobile one.
A mobile fortress. That's a great analogy.
Okay, let's wrap this up. We've gone through the history, the strategy, the ESG. What are the big takeaways for someone listening? If they want to sound smart, using this company as a case study, what are the 3 points they make?
Point number 1. Resilience is a competency, not just a character trait. This company proves that crisis management is a skill you build. They treat volatility as a feature, not a bug, and they built their systems, IFRS, ISO, to handle it.
I like that. Resilience is a muscle. What's number 2?
Quality is transferable. This is the big lesson. They prove that the discipline of making an air conditioner can apply to growing a soybean. It's about the process, not the product. So if you're a leader looking to diversify, ask, what is my core process that I can export?
Don't just export your product, export your mindset. Great. And number 3?
Integrated thinking. They don't have a business strategy and then a separate sustainability strategy. It's one value creation model. They understand that financial capital is useless if you burn through your social or natural capital. That's what double materiality proves.
It's funny, we started this talk about 1983 and air conditioners, and we ended up on soybeans and double materiality.
That's the 40-year journey of adaptation right there.
So here's the thought for you, the listener. We've seen this company pivot from car parts to electronics, now to agriculture. In a world changing this fast, are you defined by what you make or by how you learn?
And that raises an even bigger question. Can an industrial giant really continue to move with the speed of a startup forever? Or does all this complexity, farms, factories, logistics, eventually create too much drag?
That is the billion-dollar question. Or, I guess, the multi-million unit question.
Let's stick to units. Safer that way.
This was great. Thanks for diving into this with us. It's rare you see a report this honest about the struggle.
My pleasure. That double materiality section really stood out. It's a great example for other companies to follow.
And for everyone listening, if you want to see if they start manufacturing spaceships next, make sure you're subscribed.
Knowing this company, spaceships might actually be on the roadmap.
I wouldn't bet against it. Thanks for listening to The Deep Dive. We'll catch you on the next one.